Well, hey, welcome to today's podcast, Calvary Chapel Salmon podcast. Great to have you with us. We kind of left everyone on a little bit of a cliffhanger last time we were here. We were going through Hagen's testimony, and it was just about to get to the good part. So today, I have Hagen with me, I have Chase with me, and we want to kind of pick up where we left off with Hagen's testimony. So,
Well,
Hagen.
Jordan, we're glad that we're here with you. Thanks
Stop.
for inviting us to be on your podcast.
No problem. Anytime.
This is great. Yeah, I think I left off last week with kind of I stumbled upon this YouTube video about the truth about Joseph Smith, and my Mormon world was crumbling, but I had a relationship with Jesus Christ that had already been established that I was able to then fall back on. So all that kind of starts happening, and I start, I realize that the religion that I'm raised in is not what it's cracked up to be, that this Jesus thing of the Bible is what it's all about. I'm all in on this, and I'm slowly going through school, and I was thinking about this the other day. I can't tell if it's just because of like what was happening in my heart, or if it was truly something that was taking place around me, but when I kind of look at other people involved, it was honestly like a mini revival. Like it really was. Like it was so cool what was happening
At
with
the high school?
with some kids my age. Yeah, during that season, there was a good group of us that were all going to youth group. We were on the youth group worship team. We would pray together at school. We would encourage each other at school. We would pray outside at the flagpole for a season there, like every week. I forget what day, but maybe like Thursday mornings, we would gather around the flagpole together and we would pray. There's just a lot of neat stuff that was happening during that time, which was super cool to be a part of. And looking back on it now, I didn't realize how like cool and unique that was. But as all this is going on, so I get saved, and before I got saved, I had bought a guitar because I thought it'd be cool to learn to play guitar. I buy a guitar, I try it.
Hagen was the motivation to pick up all the ladies.
Not necessarily, but I hear that sometimes that's just a consequence of playing guitar.
A terrible consequence.
Yes, it's just what happens sometimes. So I buy this guitar and I try to learn it, but I quit because it's too hard. Some people experience that when they first try to play guitar. Right, Jordan?
Yes, it is difficult.
Yeah,
Yes.
you try it, it's harder than you think, it's tricky. So I have this guitar, I go to youth group, I see that, oh wow, I can actually use this thing to worship Jesus. So I go home and I get it out and I start learning it. On YouTube, I just start learning the 4 basic chords that you need to be able to play worship songs. And I'm talking to the pastor and he tells me, hey, bring your guitar and I can teach you the song. So I brought my guitar and I came early one Thursday to youth group, and he taught me the progression of the song, Lord, I Lift Your Name on High, which is just super easy, and I just kept practicing, and not too long after that, I was like the guitar player for the youth group, and then we got some singers, then we got someone to play piano, and then there was a drummer.
You weren't the singer, Hagen?
I wasn't the singer, but I would sing sometimes.
Oh,
and
yeah.
actually, this is an interesting story. Ty tells a story once that he uses me as an illustration, and Ty is my pastor who was here when I got saved. He actually told this story when he was down guest teaching at Water Springs in Idaho Falls once about how you don't have to be good in order to worship Jesus. And he used me as an illustration of one night I was up there, and the girls weren't there to be able to sing, so I was singing, and the whole point was, even though it maybe isn't entirely on key, and even though it might not be the correct melody, like the heart was in it, and like God was able to still show up, and God still uses me in that way in worship sometimes, so that's
Yes.
nice.
And that's
We all-
different from the Mormon church. Like you guys,
As far as style, for sure.
instrument-wise and stuff like that. Like
Piano, keyboard, or piano and organ, maybe. Singing hymns. Very, well, as a
plain,
teenager, boring.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden, here's a place that you have a guitar. On Sunday, they have this whole band. And people are just like dressing normal. You're not like dressing up to go to church. It's just like the whole culture is just completely different. And I just really like the laid back environment. The spiritual people, the smart theological people would call it Calvary Chapel. They have a low liturgy. We're low on the liturgy scale. We're very casual. You could even almost use the word liberal as far as how we look. Theologically, Calvary Chapel is very conservative, biblically, but the way that we look, it looks way more like a liberal church, which I think is a good balance. So all of that was a huge thing to me. But with that, the point is that right after I got saved, I started getting involved. I started serving. So I'm playing guitar. I'm doing. I'm kind of leading the worship band as far as picking the songs, planning the practices, all that kind of stuff. So I was the worship leader essentially for the youth group. And one time, the youth pastor at the time, volunteer, his name was Chad. He wasn't able to come. So he texted me like earlier that day, something happened, and he said, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to make it to youth group. Could you fill in for me?" So I'm still in high school. I'm probably a senior. And he asked me, "Hey, could you fill in for me?" And it's like, sure, no problem. So and actually, somewhere deep in the archives of Jessica Gordon's Facebook page, there's footage that she recorded of me teaching that night. And I'll have to see if I can somehow get access to that, and I'll post it somewhere for us to be able to enjoy.
So look forward to that.
Young 18-year-old Hagen teaching somewhere in John.
Yeah, you probably have like a golden halo around your head. And
no, but I did have a bit more hair.
Oh, okay.
Which is nice.
Yeah, like my amount of hair.
Not. I never had your amount of hair, Jordan.
Okay.
Yeah, I never did.
Never.
Yeah. So that leads into my senior year of high school. Now, what's the biggest question people ask people that are getting ready to finish high school, Chase? What are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do next? High school is coming to an end. What's next? And it's like, I really didn't know. I knew that I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And it was like, might as well go to college. That's what most people are doing after high school. So I applied to Idaho State University. Even though I did terrible on my ACTs, even though I never took a foreign language in high school, I got accepted. So it's like, okay, this is cool. So me and Taylor go to college. But the day before, so the Sunday before I leave for college, so it's the end of August, the end of summer, we're doing this event called Rock the River. Bring some bands in, have church down at the island, and then we were doing baptisms. And I'd never been baptized yet. So I've been saved now for about 2.5 years and pretty radically serving Jesus and not been baptized yet. So it's like, now's the perfect time. I'm getting ready to go off to college. I'm leaving this town. I want to get baptized. So great, planning on getting baptized. One little problem with that. So up to this stage of the game, every Sunday, I'm still going to church at the Mormon church. Pretty much because I have to. Definitely strongly suggested, like with my parents, like this is where you need to be on Sunday. So it's like, okay, but I'm going to Wednesday nights at Calvary Chapel. I'm going to Thursday nights at youth group at Calvary Chapel. So I'm still way more involved here than I am there. And I'm completely checked out over there. Actually, so much so, this is an interesting side note. When I was in the Mormon church, after I got saved, a group of people would go over to the care center, Discovery Care Center, and do church there, and take them the sacrament, which would be like for us communion. So I would always volunteer to want to go over to Discovery. Guess why I would want to do that? Because when I got done with Discovery, guess where I would swing by?
Stop.
Guess what's right next door to Discovery Care Center?
Hagen, you rebel.
Calvary Chapel.
Stop.
So more than once, I would go there and I'd fulfill my Mormon responsibilities of doing little church service for them. And then instead of going back over to church where I should be, I'd go to church at Calvary Chapel. And one time my cousin, Jeff, went with me. So literally we're dressed up in our suits and ties, and we walk into Calvary Chapel, and we stay for the second service. It was just the funnest thing.
Wow.
But that was
You
just
dirty
something I
dog.
remembered that we would do. But anyway, so it's time to get baptized. I'm ready for it. This will be great. But I have, because it's just tricky with my parents, I'm not real open with them as far as what's going on in my life spiritually. Like, they definitely know I'm done with Mormonism. They definitely know something's going on over here.
Even though you're still going to church on Sundays, like the Mormon church,
For sure. Yep.
they were still like aware that like
Oh, yeah.
you're not
They know he's like checked out of this. Like, he doesn't really believe it. And, well, oh man, here's why they know. This gets even better. So, when I'm a senior in high school, we do this thing called Youth Sunday. And we've done it here before, and the idea is the youth do everything from worship to sharing the message. And I remember we're gathered together at Ty's house as a youth group, and it's like we're planning this Sunday. And it's like, well, who's going to teach? And there was this kid who wanted to teach. It's like, perfect. And Ty asked me, he goes, well, Hagen, would you like to teach? And I go, I would, but I really don't want to. And he says, well, that's why I think you should. It's like, okay. It's like, well, I have to ask my parents if I can even get that Sunday off, as far as off from the Mormon church, because I got to stop going to church that Sunday where I'm supposed to be and come to this other church that's captured my heart, type of a thing. So I asked my parents, hey, this is what's going on. The pastor asked me if I could teach. Could I go there? Could I go to Calvary Chapel on this Sunday morning? And they said, yes. So it's like, okay, let's do this thing. So anyway, do Youth Sunday, 2 services. I share the message. It was a super great time. Had a lot of good, encouraging feedback as you're just stepping out in faith. The plot thickens. So my bishop at the Mormon church hears that I shared at Youth Sunday. Now, here's the thing that's interesting about that. Oh man, there's just so much to share. So in Mormonism, the bishop doesn't preach like the pastor does. Mm-hmm. What happens is he asks different people different weeks to share from the congregation. So it'd be like, this week we're going to have the Schaefers share in sacrament meeting, and like Jordan and Avery and Junior Jordan, one day, many years into the future, the family's going to share. And each of you would share a 10 to 15-minute talk on something, on a topic that the bishop gave you, like charity or faith or hope or family, or they're very generic topics like that. And you'd put together a little talk, and each one of you would, and then you'd get up and you'd share. That's how it works. So anyway, growing up in Mormonism, the last time I probably spoke is when I was 8 years old, when I got baptized in Mormonism. So I hated public speaking. Anytime the bishop would ask, I'd say no, which is a little interesting because most people would say yes, but I would just say no because I didn't like it that much. Anyway, so now I'm 18. The bishop finds out I've spoken over here at Calvary Chapel, and so he asked me, like the next week or the week after, hey, I heard you shared at Calvary Chapel. And I was like, yeah. He goes, well, would you share here?
Whoa.
And I said, yes. And I said, but I get to pick the topic. And he said, deal. And it's like, okay, this is the most ballerest thing I've ever done, literally in my entire life. This is the wildest thing ever. So I get up there. So it's like generally a couple adults speak, and then like one of the youth would speak. So I'm the youth speaker that Sunday. So an adult speaks, another adult speaks, and now it's time for me to get up there. And I get up there, and I have this whole teaching, and I give the same message that I gave at Calvary on Sunday morning at the Mormon church. And it's this whole thing about Peter and him denying Jesus and Jesus restoring him. And my ending was all about, it's not about the law, it's about love. It's not about works, it's about grace. It's not about religion, it's about a relationship. I ended it with that statement, and then I sit down. And like, I can't explain to you how foreign that is in that context, like that type of delivery and kind of taking a bit of a jab. It was like the craziest thing ever. Some people from Calvary Chapel came to the LDS church that Sunday to watch me.
That's
Jessica
nice.
Gordon was there, some of my friends were there. It was super cool. And later on that day after church, I get one feedback. One old man calls me from the Mormon church. My house phone, my home phone, calls the Miller line. My mom answers or something. Hagen, it's for you. It's this guy, blah, blah, blah. Hey, good job on your talk today at church, this old man said. I really liked how much you used the Bible. That was the only feedback I got.
Well, hey.
But it was extremely awkward, like the most awkward thing I've ever done.
It was
Anyway.
awkward when you were there or awkward in the phone call?
No, when I was there.
Okay.
Like standing up and everyone knows Hagen's been going to this other church's youth group. Hagen's been getting involved in this other church. What's he going to say? And I was respectful, but I was very much like clear that like I'm in a different world than everyone else now. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
No one tried to stop you or anything? They just
No, and if I would have got like nasty, they would have, but I was very intentional of being respectful, but then also just like making clear that what I'm sharing from this book, the Bible, I'm challenging the system is what I'm doing. So all that ends up happening a couple months later, end of summer, time to get baptized, right? Time to get baptized. I don't really tell my parents I'm planning on getting baptized. This is my last Sunday in Salmon. I'm going off to college like that next week to move to Pocatello with my best friend Taylor, who's the one who invited me to youth group in the first place. We'll have him on the podcast at a later date. I'd love to have him share his story because the way that our stories intertwine is really cool. Anyway, so it's time to get baptized. It's that Sunday morning. Taylor's getting baptized as well. So I'm telling my parents I'm going to go to this church event in the park because I'm going to watch Taylor get baptized. Two problems. One, I have a cousin that's a narc. And two, I was wearing shorts and flip-flops, and at that time in my life, I didn't wear that much. Now I wear that a lot in the summer, but at that time in my life, I didn't. So I'm ready to go to church in the park, and I'm wearing shorts and flip-flops. And my dad, I remember right before I leave, he goes, "So you're going to watch Taylor get baptized, huh?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, what about you?" And I'm like, busted. Busted. And one of my cousins who knew about this, who I go to school with, had mentioned this to my family apparently, and then also what I was wearing gave it away. And I said, and I was just like, it was a girl. And I was like, well, I said, I might, we'll see what happens.
Maybe.
It's like, it depends on how I feel type of a thing. Trying to just downplay it. And it was just a huge, it's probably the most dramatic I've ever seen my family. And I mean that in the most respectable way. My mom's getting ready for church that morning, and she comes out, what's going on? And it's hard to understand this, but if you just try to like put yourself in their shoes, like this is devastating. Like your son is leaving the church that you believe is true. He's joining this crazy church that has drums, and they wear whatever they want, and they drink coffee in the sanctuary. Like it's just crazy. Like the whole thing is just crazy from a Mormon context. And anyway, it was like super disappointing and hard, I think. I don't want to put emotions into my parents' lives, but the feeling I got from them was just like disappointing, hard, and not able to comprehend why I would want to do this. And I remember my mom was just super emotional, and it was like, you're not quite a direct quote maybe, but almost like you're ruining our eternal family, because in Mormonism, the family unit is eternal. It's all about living together for eternity. You need to be good Mormons to be able to do that. Now I'm leaving the whole thing. And I just remember getting in my car and leaving, and I was just crying the whole time. And like I felt so alone, but I knew this was the right thing to do. And I'm running late because I had this big conversation with my parents, and I'm driving downtown on a Sunday, down to the island. And I remember calling Taylor, and I was like, "Hey, I'm late, but I'm on my way." And I'm just like super emotional. And anyway, get there, have this great service, and get baptized. And it was just super cool, super neat experience. And then I'm gone. Never been to the Mormon church since.
Oh, wow.
So that was once I got baptized, I've never been back. And it just worked out with how my life is, that out of the house, never back, off to college, Pocatello for 9 months for 2 semesters. As I'm in college, it's like, what are you going to do? Well, I guess I'll pursue a degree in finance because I'd like to make 6 figures a year, at least $100,000 a year. That was my goal.
How's that goal going now?
Well, I kind of had to give up on those dreams for the...
You heard it here first. Hagen pays himself 6 figures for the church.
Yeah, no.
Kidding.
A bit shy of that, actually. But Yeah. So that was like the driving force in my life, and I'm there, and it's fun. I loved everything about the experience. It was great. Taylor and I started a ministry called Christians on Campus, and we would hosted a few little Bible studies and did some different things, and God used me there. But towards the end of the second semester, I knew that this is not what I was supposed to do, and I knew this isn't that it was just a waste of time.
Would you say a waste of money as well? Were you on scholarship or
Oh,
something?
please. I was not on scholarship. Yeah, I was paying out of my pocket. Yes.
Yeah. How much?
Yeah.
How much was that? Do you remember?
Like $6,000.
For both semesters?
Yeah.
Per semester? Okay.
Yep.
It's
So
not too bad.
it's like, yeah, this is a waste of time. This is a waste of money. I'm not passionate about this. And I remember calling Ty, my pastor, and I said, hey, I think I'm going to drop out of college, and I'm just going to come back to Salmon, and just kind of talked it through with him, and end up doing that, finish out the semester, come back to Salmon, and the idea is that here I am, I'm back in Salmon, I want to get involved, and there's going to be this rotation of teaching on Thursday nights for youth group. Me and two other guys are going to rotate through. So like I'll teach a month, the next guy will teach a month, the next guy will teach a month, and it'll be my month again. So I started. I teach 1 Peter. And then the next guy ends up bailing. He can't commit. So the next guy ends up bailing. He can't commit. So I just keep on teaching on Thursday nights at youth group for the next like 2.5 years. It's just like, here I am. I guess I'm just going to keep doing this. For the next 2.5 years, I was the youth pastor at Calvary Chapel Salmon, and I'd show up and just teach them the Bible.
You were the Jordan of the time.
Oh, I was the Jordan of the time.
Wow.
But I never did games. I hated games. I would never do games. We'd do worship, and I'd bring a good message, and we'd just talk.
We know.
Yes. So,
A little feisty with games.
yeah, that's right. Things
Ga-
can get out of hand
games get a
sometimes
little
at youth
intense,
group with
yes.
games. You never know how that's going to go. So anyways, so that just gets me way more involved. So this is great. I'm teaching regularly. I'm exercising this gift that's God has given me. And then during that time, I'm probably 20, maybe 21, maybe barely 21. One Sunday morning, I get a text from Ty, our senior pastor, and he says, I have kidney stones. I'm in the ER. I can't come to church. Lee's gone. He's like hunting or something on this hunting trip. And so it's like, he's not there. And it's like, I'm the next in line. So I get this text at like 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Can you fill in for me? And it's like, sure. So I mesh a couple youth group messages together, and I fill in for 2 services on a Sunday morning. And the point in my testimony that I'm building into, if you're noticing, it's just like, wherever there's an open door and I'm available, I'm walking through.
Mm-hmm.
The plan wasn't for Hagen to teach youth group forever. He started for a month, but then there was an open door, and he just stayed, and he just kept doing it. And then all of a sudden, here's an opportunity to teach on a Sunday morning, and I'm scared. I've never done anything like it, but I do it, and I walk through it. So God keeps presenting these opportunities. I keep saying yes to the opportunities that God's presenting. So that was a neat experience. And then several months pass, almost probably a whole another year. And then it's a Wednesday night. This is getting to how I ended up as the pastor here. It's a Wednesday night. I'm 21 years old. I'm working for Dally Construction. I get to church late that night. After service, the pastor asked me if we could talk outside. So we're sitting outside the steps of the K House, the red brick building. I remember it's a September night, nice, cool, getting cooler evening. And he says to me, hey, I've been given the opportunity to move down to Idaho Falls and become the pastor down there at Water Springs. He said to me, would you be interested in becoming the pastor here at Calvary Chapel Salmon? And I was like, whoa. Wow. Like, I mean, definitely I'm interested, but there's like a lot involved in that. And like I can teach, but there's a lot more to this than just that and all this different stuff. But then he goes, this was the best part. He goes, let me know in the morning. So I said, okay.
You slept like a baby that night, I bet.
I'm sure I did, yes. So the next morning, I remember where I was at. I was at the yard over there at Dally Construction, and I texted Ty, and I said, sure, let's do this thing. And within a week, he's moved down to Idaho Falls, and I'm sitting behind his desk, and everyone is looking to me as the senior pastor of Calvary Chapel Salmon at 21 years old, just like that.
Sheesh.
And now, this September will be 7 years that that's happened, which is crazy to think about, but never looked back. Just kept moving forward, kept faithfully teaching the Word of God, and been through a lot of interesting things, and I've got to do a lot of cool stuff. But it's just really cool to see what God has done over just this past season, and what he's going to do as I just continue to follow him into the future.
That's interesting because there was never a point where you were like, I'm going to be a senior pastor. Like,
No,
never in college.
but
Oh, okay.
there's a but. Two things. One, after I did the Youth Sunday thing, I had more than one person come up to me and say, we believe one day you'll be a pastor. Like, we see a calling on your life.
At youth group?
No, after I taught Youth Sunday on a Sunday morning.
But he was still in high
church,
school at this point,
Yep,
right? Yeah.
Yep. Some people from the church came up and said, we believe that one day you'll be a pastor. We can see a call of God in your life, something along those lines. So that's always in the back of my head. And then I'm very interested in church. I'm not just showing up on Wednesdays and Thursdays, or then later on Sundays, but I'm there almost daily. I'm going there after work. I'm hanging out with the pastor. I'm interested on how he does what he does. And so there's a curiosity about ministry. There's a calling of ministry, but not knowing exactly what that means. So then what happens is, after I dropped out of college and I moved back, we went to this thing called the O2 Experience in Missoula, Montana, which is something that Levi Lusko was doing, pastor of Fresh Life Church. And I'm not a huge fan of what Levi's doing today, but back then, he was doing this. It was actually, honestly, it was a purity conference for like youth, and you go, and it's called the O2 Experience. It's all about being sexually pure, and we took our youth group over there. So I'm 20 years old. Taylor's with me. He's probably 20. And there's this youth leader named Jacelyn. She's 2 years older, so she's 22. The three of us have a van full of kids, our white van full of kids. We drive over to Missoula. We go to this conference, and then we come all the way back that night. And I think now it's like, I would never send a 20-year-old loaded with vans, loaded with kids in a van. So it was crazy with the opportunities that Ty gave me. But anyway, when I'm at that conference and Levi's preaching, I feel stirred. And here's what I do. This is actually part of my story that I don't tell a lot. And there's no reason other than I just never have enough time to tell it. But it was like, you need to do Bible college. And I said, okay. That's what's the stirring I got. I've been flirting with the idea. So we come back from the O2 experience. Sometime that week, I go into Ty's office, and I go, I think I need to enroll in Calvary Chapel Bible College online. This is before CBI ever existed. This is before CGN ever existed. This is before there was a split. This is just like what it was. Calvary Chapel Bible College was the place. So it's like, and they had an online campus. It's like, I think I need to enroll in classes. And Ty said, yeah, cool, that'd be awesome. So I enroll in some classes, and I do some online Bible college classes. And I do that for probably, and I'm not doing a lot because I'm working and very involved, but I do that for probably over a year, taking some different classes. And then ultimately what happened with that is I actually ended up failing out of Bible college. Yeah, I had, no, while I'm the youth pastor, but yeah, so I went back, sorry. So I ended up kind of failing out, and then I just dropped out of that too. So it's like, okay, so I did graduate high school at least, but I've dropped out of secular college, and I've kind of failed out of Bible college, and now I'm ready.
There you go.
But so then here's where the story gets really good. Months before, probably the summer before, like a few months before that September when Ty ended up leaving, I really was feeling a stirring in my heart of like, I don't want to do construction the rest of my life. I sense that God has some sort of great way of using me in like the most humble way that you can say that. But honestly, it's like, I just sense like God wants to use me, and it's more than what I have right now. So there's like this preparation process that's taking place. And I'm looking into different options and thinking about, could I go somewhere else? Could I intern at some church? What could happen? And then the doors open, and it was like perfect timing. And with all that, it brings me into something that I've kind of been teaching on in chapel to the 5th and 6th period. We're in 1 Samuel, and there's two things that we've seen in 1 Samuel, like chapter 10 and chapter 11. And that is that Saul has a call in his life to be the king of Israel. And there's a point there, I think, in 1 Samuel chapter 10, where Samuel, the old man, the prophet, looks at young Saul and he says, "You're going to be the next king." And Saul says, "I can't be the king. I'm of the least of the tribes. I'm of the tribe of Benjamin. My family's nothing special." And in that we learn this lesson that Samuel saw a call of God on Saul's life that Saul couldn't see in himself in the moment. And that's one thing. The second thing, the next chapter, it's time for Saul to be anointed and received as the king of Israel. So Samuel has all of Israel line up. Everyone's in order of their tribes, and he's going to declare who the king is. It's of the tribe of Benjamin. It's of the family of Kish. It's Saul. But Saul's not here. Where's Saul at? He's hiding. He's hiding behind the what? It says in the New King James, the equipment. That word can be translated, I love this, baggage. It says there in 1 Samuel chapter 11, I believe, he's hiding behind the baggage. God has a call on Saul's life. Saul is hiding behind the baggage. That'll preach. Because there's people that have a call of God on their life, and the biggest excuse they have is the baggage in their life. You don't know who my family is. You don't know how many mistakes I've made. You don't know the kind of stupid things that I've done. You don't know how messed up I am. You don't know how unqualified or ungifted I am. Now we're sounding like Moses.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
Hiding amongst the baggage. And what I like about that, where I'm studying right now in 1 Samuel, and how it applies kind of to my story, and what I hope I'm able to pass on to the next generation, is that the temptation maybe is to want to hide or run from the call that God has on your life because of whatever excuse you might be able to come up with. And I'll even say this, and I think you see this in the Bible. You can run for a while,
sure.
but it'll catch up to you. And God has a way of accomplishing what he wants in your life. And if you truly want to do what God wants you to do, it'll work out. And it might not be as quickly as it would have been if you would have just surrendered in the first place, but it'll happen, and he'll get you. And the best part, he won't just get you, he'll use you. And the best thing is to be used by God. The best thing is when you're doing what you were created to do. And that's what I want. That's what I want for you, Jordan. That's what I want for Chase. That's what I want for everybody. I want people to just do what God has created them to do. I want them to do what God has called them to do. And if it's to be a plumber, then do it. But do it and glorify Jesus in it. But if it's to be serious about the Lord and get involved in ministry and step out in faith and submerge yourself in the circus that is church, then do it. But do it. Whatever it is, do it. Take that step of faith. And don't worry about how does the financial part of it work? How does what's the retirement look like? It's like, I don't know what the retirement looks like, right? I don't know. I'm still figuring that stuff out. But I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. Nothing. There's nothing else I'd rather be doing with my life than this. Now, there's things that I do on a day-to-day basis that I go, I wish I didn't have to do that. I wish I didn't have to do that. Hard conversations, putting up with difficult people sometimes. Not at this church.
Yep.
But there's nothing else I'd rather do than be serving Jesus and be walking in the calling that God has in my life. And I want to be better at equipping and doing what Paul says in 1 Timothy, and that's to stir up the gifts that are in you. And I'm trying to figure out better ways that Jesus can use me to stir up the gifts in Jordan's life, to stir up the gifts in Chase's life, to stir up the gifts in people's life that God has given them so that they can use how God has gifted them to serve him, because that's what this is really all about.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that you want to stir people up. And as you were saying that, I thought back to when I was in high school, and super random, we had like I went to this Christian school, and we had like a Christian, it was a spirit week, but for a Christian school, so like a Holy Spirit week. It's kind of corny.
Oh, wow, that's
yeah.
nice.
So they had like chapels or whatever. Go to chapel, and then Sunday night comes the week after. I go to Sunday night prayer. I know Mike Foch, my youth pastor, know him.
Who's he the son of?
Joe Foch,
Oh,
Calvary
wow.
Chapel, Philadelphia. So massive church, big old room, Sunday night prayer. So not exactly packed, but there's people there. And Mike just gets up there and he's like, "Yeah, we had our Spirit Week this week and it was awesome." And he didn't tell me, I had no idea. He was like, "And Jordan Schaefer's gonna come up and tell you about it." And so just I had to get up there, and I was so scared, and it was terrifying. Big old room, and I just kind of muttered some things about how it was awesome.
Is that recorded anywhere?
Probably not. I
Man,
don't know.
I
Yeah,
wish I could see that.
yeah, it was probably not very good, but yeah, and just like Mike Foch was like, "You know what? Out of all the kids here, I'm just gonna choose Jordan and just have him come and speak." And I hated it. Even
Yes, and if you wanted to, you could have maybe said no.
I probably could have
dug
just
in your
I could have
heels,
just stayed right there
you
in my
could have
seat.
walked out of the room.
Yeah.
But there was an open door, and even though it was embarrassing or outside of your comfort zone or challenging or like I talked about this Sunday morning, uncomfortable, it's like you stepped out, and God honored that, right? God
sure.
spoke to that. God stirred something in that.
Yeah.
What Jordan did? He
What?
trusted.
He trusted.
Trusted.
That's right.
Yeah.
Trust.
And when I was in, kind of going off of what you just said, when I was in Bible college, and I still did not like public speaking. I still was terrified of it. I'm still even scared of it sometimes today.
No.
Getting up here and talking to all you beautiful people in this audience, not in the audience, the congregation. Sorry,
There you go.
congregation.
Yes.
It's but I didn't even like it in Bible college. But there were opportunities where you would have to get up and share like a 5-minute message. And as I remember, it was like the first week of CPI, and they were like, "Who wants to share?" And even though I didn't want to, I hated the idea, but I knew that, hey, if I'm going to do this thing, I might as well get good at it now and do it now. So I volunteered. Another example is we did this like homeless ministry where we'd go and like feed people. And so 3 people would go each week. One would do worship, one would serve the food, and one would give a message. And I remember I signed, even though I didn't like the idea, I signed up to share because I felt for some reason I need to get better at this. And the only way I'm going to get better at this is if I teach. You brought up Moses, Hagen, earlier, and God called Moses, and Moses had a whole lot of excuses. One of those was, "God, I'm not good at speaking. God, I'm not good at talking to people," and that's very relatable. I believe that's like the number one fear in America is even above like death itself is public speaking. Like some statistics say that like people would rather die than public speak. And Moses was in that camp. He didn't want to speak. God said this to him in Exodus 4:11. He said, "So the Lord said to him, who has made man's mouth, or who makes the mute, the deaf, the seeing, or the blind? Have not I the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you shall say." God didn't say to Moses, "You're going to go and you're going to be really awesome at speaking right away, but you're going to go and I'm going to teach you how to do this." And I think as people realize that they have a calling on God for their lives and they just want to be obedient to that, but they're scared, they're not good at it, well, just go and do it, go be obedient, and God will teach you. He'll make you good at it over time. It's not going to be easy. For sure. And it's true. It's like over time, I'm way more comfortable speaking now in front of people than I was 2 years ago. It's way easier now. And I think that could apply to worship. Like I'm called to be worship leader, but it's scary. I'm not very good. Well, of course you're not very good. Just you do it, and God will help you and make you good. And
yeah, that ties in with my life saying, which is God's not looking for ability. He's looking for availability. And it's like we think I don't have the ability, God. There's someone out there that's better than me. There's someone out there more skilled than me. There's someone out there that's been through this, that would be better at this than me. But it's like when God's looking at his people, he's not looking for the ability that you have to bring to the table. He's looking for the availability that you have. And if you make yourself available to be used by God, he takes care of the ability. He, through his Holy Spirit, helps us in our weaknesses. And if you're weak in an area, but you're stepping out in faith, God covers that. He's faithful to do it. And that's super important to remind ourselves, whether if it's signing up to help in Sunday school once a month,
For sure.
to the soundboard seems overwhelming, but I'm going to do my best to try to learn how to use it because it looks like they could use some help. Like whatever the spectrum is, it's like I'm stepping out in faith. I'm making myself available, and wherever I'm lacking in the ability department, God, he makes up for it.
Yeah. What would you say, Hagen, maybe to kind of wrap this whole thing up? What would you say to somebody, maybe young, maybe not so young, someone who's considering, hey, I think I might want to be a pastor. I think I might want to be a youth pastor. I might want to go to Bible college. What would you say to that person? Would you encourage them? What would you do?
Just do it.
Just do. Yeah.
I watched, I've seen a YouTube video several times of Chuck Smith, Bob Coy, who used to be pastor of Calvary Chapel, Fort Lauderdale, and an old great guy whose name's Gail Irwin. And they're sitting on a stage very similar to this one at a pastor's conference, and that question was asked to them.
Oh, wow.
And Chuck's response is, don't do it. This is what Gail Irwin said. He says, if you can do anything else, then do that. But if you realize that nothing else is satisfying and nothing else is cutting it for you, then probably you're called to be a pastor. But you kind of need to know that there's not a bunch of other options.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, and I struggle with that sometimes. And the Lord reminds me of that, because it's like, there's a beauty to being bivocational, and there's a beauty to people that are able to be very multifaceted. But it reminds me of actually David, and the Lord told David when he wanted to build the temple, I didn't call you to build me a house. I called you to shepherd my people. I called you to be king. And sometimes it's like, well, maybe on the side I could start this little business, or maybe I could do this thing. And it's like, God reminds me of that concept. Hagen, I didn't call you to do that. I called you to shepherd my people, and do that completely. And Calvary Chapel is blessed enough that I'm able to do that full time. So I don't need to be worried about trying to make $10,000 more a year by doing this side gig or something like that. All that's just distraction. Do what I've called you to do. Shepherd my people. And it's like, yes, this isn't a stepping stone. This isn't trying to get to some other place in leadership. This isn't trying to get to a bigger church. This is what God has for me to do. And so going back on someone, maybe I'm called to do this, it's like, well, slowly get involved. But there comes a point when you are doing it where the maybe's got to go. It's no longer maybe I'm called, it's I'm called. Because if you don't know if you're called, you're not going to last. Mm-hmm. Because there's going to be people, and no one who would watch the podcast, but there's people that will question your calling. There's crazy people off the street that think they're prophetesses that'll come in and challenge your calling. And if you don't know, not intellectually, but you know relationally from your experience with Jesus that he has called you, then those people can discourage you and they will make you quit. It doesn't matter what anyone says. When you know, and you're called, and you have that assurance of your calling. That way, when it gets tough, that way when things are tricky, that way when drama is happening, you can say, oh, I'd like to quit, but I can't, because I know Jesus has called me. So if I'm talking to someone who says, I might be called, I think I might be called, my advice to that is get involved, keep getting involved. If doors keep opening and people and other people are recognizing a calling on your life, keep moving forward. But then you cross the point of no return, and then you quit guessing.
Yeah.
You quit thinking and you know it. because that's part of the thing as well. Because you'll meet people that they'll tell you they're called. I'm a pastor. It's like, where's your sheep? Oh, I don't have any. It's like, I think to be a shepherd, you need sheep, right? I'm called to be a leader. Who's following you? Well, nobody. It's like, maybe you're not called to be a leader. Like, in order to lead, you kind of need people following you. In order to shepherd, you kind of need sheep. So, not that I get my validation from people, but early on, people did affirm the calling that I felt in my heart and in my spirit. I feel like God has called me. Go ahead. Confirmation. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like God has called me. I feel like God has given me the gift of teaching. When I teach, people are affirming that. If you're teaching Bible studies and no one's listening, and you've been doing it for quite a long time, maybe that's not your calling.
Yeah.
Maybe God has you called to something else. So you got to be sensitive to that. God has not called me to sing because he hasn't gifted me in singing.
Oh, we know.
But I love worship.
Yeah.
And even tonight, I'm going to be leading worship with 2 other people. I'm not doing much singing tonight, but I'm going to be leading worship and leading our Afterglow. And I love that stuff, but it's like that's not the calling that God has on my life. It's to teach and to shepherd his people. So, yeah, knowing that. And here's something that I try to be intentional of on my end. And I think you see this. And I hope you see this. And whether if you realize it or not, this is what I'm doing. And it's that I'm trying. The best thing, the most important thing that was ever given to me by my senior pastor was this: opportunity. I watched the movie Jesus Revolution just the other night again. What did Chuck Smith give to Greg Laurie? Opportunity. What did a lot of these people get? Mike McIntosh, Joe Focht, Don McClure. Opportunity. We are in a movement that is known, at least used to be known for, taking chances on young people. And I don't ever want to not do that because it was done for me. I'm gone to the Republic of Georgia. I'm gone to Peru, and I have a 20-year-old filling in for me with a church that has 300 plus people. That's crazy. That's crazy. And it's like, but I want to do that because I want to, I believe in the calling that God has on the next generation, and I want to be part of building that up, not stunting that growth. And that's why one of my prayers and one of my desires in this next season that I feel like God has me in, as I'm slowly becoming no longer the youngest guy in the room. For a while, I was the youngest guy in the room anywhere I went.
You were the kid.
I was the kid. Those days are slowly starting to leave me. I'm only 28, but they're slowly leaving me, and I have younger people coming up behind me, which is great. But it's like now, and I'm not midlife yet, but now as I'm getting closer to midlife, it's like, what is this next season? It's me now being able to be intentional in creating opportunities for them, for the next generation. And if you never do that, if you never allow those doors, if Joe or if Mike Foch would have never just out of the blue called up Jordan Schaefer on the stage, if Ty would have never asked me to teach you Sunday, or he would have never texted me when he had kidney stones, I wouldn't have had those opportunities. But I'm so glad, and I treasure those times. And one of the things that we can fall into, and this is something that me and Jordan have talked about a bit, and that is that whenever we're absent, we always want to first try to look to what's, and I don't say under us as far as like authority or position, but like who's below us as far as who we're raising up, and grab from them to fill our place before we reach above and pull down. And it's like if you're gone, if Avery's gone to Philadelphia, actually you guys are gone right now. As this podcast is airing,
it is,
you guys are gone. And it's like instead of just maybe having Riva do 2 things behind the sound booth, what if we get Carson to jump in and do one of them? Because there's a hole now. There's an open door. So instead of just making someone else's job harder, let's plug someone else in who's not doing that specific ministry right now and give them opportunity. And when you start looking at ministry as opportunities instead of accomplishing tasks, I think it changes everything. It's no longer of we just need to We just need to get lyrics on the screen. We just need sound to be right. We just need the live stream to happen. We just need announcements to take place. No. We just need children's ministry workers. No, every single one of these things is an opportunity for God's people to step out in faith and serve him. And sometimes I think the fear of the people is that if I step out and it doesn't work, then I'm stuck. And I hope if there's something you've learned from being around here for not that long, or even if you've been around here since I've been here, if we try something and it doesn't work, we'll just let it die. It's okay. If you try children's ministry, it's not your thing, that's okay. You can move on to the next thing. If you're in the sound booth for a season and it's no longer your thing, that's okay. But don't just get this fear of, I don't want to step out. Like, that's, to me, the saddest thing is if you do die and you go to heaven and Jesus looks at you and you see it in his eyes in some spiritual way, all of the ways that he could have used you if you just would have stepped out in faith. So, take steps of faith.
Yeah.
Trust. Take those steps. And some of them are just so little. They're so little. They're just getting involved in the littlest of ways. Some of them are massive leaps of faith. But whatever size it is that God's calling you to, do it. Jump in. Be all in. And watch. Watch how he changes you. Watch how he develops you. Watch how he gives you a heart for a ministry or a situation or a person that you didn't have a heart for before, but now he's growing it and he's giving you the desires of your heart. Like, it's super cool to see. And there's a crisis in churches today. I don't know the statistics. You can look them up. But across America, churches are closing their doors because no one wants to lead them. No one wants to be their pastors. And part of that we can chalk up to, when you look at what churches are actually doing this, to traditionalism, because most of them are the more traditional Protestant churches that are struggling right now. The ones that aren't going liberal are going broke, unfortunately. And it's like, I don't want that to happen for our movement. I don't want, when Hagen Miller dies, for Calvary Chapel, whatever the building is at that time, to be sold and have it be turned into some sort of library or something else. It's like the church needs to be able to continue on. And the only way that happens is if you keep reaching down to the next generation and bring them along with you. And that's that's it. And that's, again, what I'm trying to accomplish here. It's like, if you're going to do something, instead of doing it alone, if someone's available, take them with you.
For sure. Something I've noticed when working with middle schoolers and high schoolers, but then also with working with, we do like a younger kid youth group, like younger kids like 3rd through 5th grade. Those 3rd through 5th graders, they want to do stuff. They want to read the Bible verses. They want to pray. They want to get up there and sing for worship. They want to do, and then if I asked in youth group, hey, so-and-so, do you want to close us out in prayer? Oh, no. No, I don't want to. And so I don't know what happens. Maybe something to do with puberty, but
it might be puberty.
At one point, Christians go from, oh, I just want to do this stuff. This is cool. This is interesting. This is new, to I don't want to. I might be embarrassed. I might not say the right thing. And I think it's just self-conscious. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's a whole other can of worms right there. Yeah.
It all starts from, like you said, the baby steps. Like, it started from you going to youth group.
For sure.
And now you're the senior pastor here at Calvary Chapel Salmon.
That's right.
Yeah.
They'll
just say yes.
God wants you, he's going to take you there. He's going to guide you.
Yeah. And your job or my job or his job is to say yes. It's yes. It's yes. There's a million things and opportunities out there, but when it's a door that God is opening, you don't want to ignore that one.
Yeah.
It's worth doing.
For sure.
Chase, is there a door in your life that God has opened for you, maybe in the next season of your life? You're almost done with high school. It's like, what's next? CBI.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I went with Hagen down to
What's my name?
Joshua Springs. it was for your wedding. First time I went there, and kind of looked around and stuff, and I was just like, you know, didn't really think too much of it. You know, it was kind of cool. This place Jordan went to, stuff like that. Looked around, got a crew neck, you know.
There you go.
That was kind of cool. And yeah, on the way back home, didn't really think much of it until the second time I went down there, and had a good talking to with Gerald.
Pastor Gerald, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about like just life, you know, and what the possibilities are, and you know, like, you know, doors open. Like you said, you just need to trust, and yeah, I just feel like that's a door opened, you know. It's like I'm gonna walk through there.
And there's literally a million options you could take in as far as life after high school. But that seemed to be a very obvious open door, and you very easily could have said, no, I got this other plan, no, I want to do this other thing, but you decided to say yes, and a year from now, who knows what that yes will turn into. Who knows what connections you're going to make, who knows who you're going to meet, who knows what God's going to stir in you, who knows what gifts are going to come to the surface, who knows who knows where we'll be in a year from now. Because
we might be dead.
The good news, is that we're just like, we're all growing in this thing.
Like Jordan, you never knew you were going to come to Salmon.
No, I didn't even know I was going to California.
You never even heard of Idaho, right?
I had no idea where Idaho was on the map. Literally no idea. Yeah, and it's just similar to you, Chase. I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I'm graduating high school. Some youth pastor, some pastor tells me about CBI. I'm like, what's CBI? And then I'm like, sure, I'll go spend a year there. And then, like you said, just that yes led to another yes, led to another thing. And now I'm here for a little bit, been here for a while, and I think I'll stay here for a while. So, yeah, just keep saying yes. Well, guys, it's been great chatting about this, calling and testimonies. Trusting, yes. Moral of the story, say yes. If there's an opportunity, something God wants you to do, say yes. I think that's all that we have for them today.
Yeah, for sure. If you know, or you're a young person and you're not sure what to do with the rest of your life and you're interested in Calvary Bible Institute, check it out online and then talk to Jordan or myself, and we could love to give you more information. And it's not for everybody, but it is definitely a great tool for a lot of kids that they're graduating high school and they just don't really have a plan. You commit a year of your life to going through the entirety of God's Word and making friends that'll last an eternity.
For sure.
And you might even meet your wife there, I guess, like Jordan did.
It happens. Very affordable, 1 year. Yeah, go through the whole Bible. When else are you going to have a chance to do that in your life? So, yep, cool beans.
Right on.
All right. Well, catch you guys later.
See ya.
There you go.
It's like, today's podcast is brought to you by CBI. If you're interested, click on our affiliate link down below.